Hey everyone, welcome back to White Sparrow Living, Luke 12:6. This is Wendy. Today we're going to be doing 4 Dollar Tree DIYs for your fall farmhouse home decor. If this is your first time here, welcome, and I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button down below, as well as the little bell right next to it so that you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. If you like these projects, don't forget to give them a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. And now, without further ado, let's get started. For our first project, we're going to be using this wooden chalkboard from Dollar Tree, some scrap eucalyptus that I get from Walmart, one of these sunflowers, and they come in a package of 6, my bistro chalk marker and white pencil, some painter's tape, some Waverly wax in antique, and then my hot glue gun and my scissors. And so the first thing I did was just masked off the wood part of my frame because I'm going to be painting that with the Waverly wax. And so I just make little corners by using my scissors and make sure that I get all of the chalkboard covered up completely. Then I'm going to use my paintbrush and put on some of that wax, and then I'll wipe it off with my paper towel, and I'll just keep doing this until I get it to the darkness or shade that I want in the antique wax. So everything in this video is kind of a twofer or reversible. So if I would have thought of that earlier, I would have done the back side of this chalkboard as well and put another message on there. So I'm just going to take my painter's tape off, and then with my white pencil, I'm going to write in the message that I want on the chalkboard. And I had seen this a while back when I was teaching a youth group class, and one of the teachers at the school had this on her desk. And I thought it was so funny, but it's YOLO, which stands for you only live once, and then LOL, which is laugh out loud, and then JK, just kidding, and then BRB, be right back, and then it was signed Jesus. So it's YOLO, LOL, JK, BRB, because he's coming back. I think that's just so funny. So to embellish this, I'm just going to be using some eucalyptus leaves from Walmart. And this is just a scrap piece, but they come in pretty generous bunches for $1. And so I take it and I'm going to hot glue that kind of in the corner, and I'll have some going up and some going down. And these always make me think that they're upside down. They look upside down to me, so I always turn them the other way just because I think they should be facing the other way. So regardless, I just put 3 little sprigs on there, and I put 2 on each side and 1 kind of in the middle pointing up towards the chalkboard. And then I'm going to take one of my little sunflowers and hot glue him right in the middle. And here it is all done, and I just think this is so cute and it just makes me laugh. But you could put whatever message you want to on here, and I think just with that little sunflower and little bit of greenery, it makes for a super cute sign. And like I said, you could put something on the back if you want, but I think this turned out super sweet, and I hope you guys like it too. For our next project, we're going to be using some maple leaves, a book, our hot glue gun, scissors, jute twine, and the handle of a used paintbrush. And so the first thing I did was just tore out a bunch of pages from this Dollar Tree book, and then I'm going to make a template from one of the pages and then just cut out a whole bunch. I didn't really know how many I would need, but I just did a bunch, and then if I needed more, I just added to it. So this template, I just kind of did it freehand, but it turns out this isn't the right shape, but you'll see that in a second, and I think it looks cuter. So I don't really have a template for that. I just used this, and then I'll adjust it later on. So all I did was started using my hot glue and folded the pages over and just got them together at the open side so that they're all closed and they look like little pieces of rolled over paper. So then I took each one and started gluing those together, and then just attached each of those, and I made little bunches of 5 or 6, and then I'll end up putting those together into one big circle. So this is the point when I realized it's not really looking like a pumpkin, so I needed to round the top edges, and so I just pulled the pieces together and then made a rounded corner and got rid of the square edges, and that made it look way better. And so I ended up doing the same thing on the bottom, and even though I needed it to be flat in order for it to sit flat, I did the same thing towards that bottom corner. And then I'm going to put them all together. So if you were looking at a template that was laying flat on your surface, it would be probably the top parts of a heart kind of, and then it would be at the top and bottom of your flat page, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to take the handle of my used paintbrush and I'm going to tuck it right in the middle of my pages, and I used some hot glue to secure that, and then I put my pages together where it became a full circle. Now I'm going to take my jute twine and wrap that all the way up my stem, and then I'll just tie that off in a knot back down towards the bottom. And I just thought that would be cute if they were long and left hanging, and that would count as our little tendrils. So now I'm going to take some maple leaves, and I just took some berries and a couple of the leaves, and I'm going to tuck those inside one of the pages, and to secure it, of course, I'm going to use my hot glue. And then I took a small piece of buffalo check ribbon, and I'm going to tie that around under the berries and over the leaves, and then give those a dovetail cut going diagonally, and then he is all done. And here it is, all finished, and I think he is so stinking cutie patootie. I would love to see 3 different ones in different sizes all put together but made the same way and maybe embellished differently. I also think it would have been a really cute idea to take some of that pumpkin chalk paint and just dusted the edges with a little bit of that orange and on the tops and bottoms, but I still think he's cute. I think it turned out adorable, and it was pretty easy once I got the hang of it and figured out what pattern to make it. So I hope you guys like it. For our next project, we're going to be using this scarecrow sign, a kneeling pad, a metal word, and we're using thankful, and then 3 of these wooden leaves, my Waverly chalk paint in white and black, and then my Waverly wax in antique, as well as some chalk in pumpkin. And so the first thing we're going to do is take off his little hat brim that says Happy Fall, and I took off all of the excess glue that was on there, and then using my needle nose pliers, I'm going to pull out those staples from the back of the sign. This is going to be a twofer also, so we're going to make something on the front and the back. So I'm first going to use my Waverly white chalk paint, and I have to say thank you to Debbie Kirby, who sent me a big old bottle in the mail. Thank you, Debbie. I love you. So in between coats, you can always put your brush into a Ziploc baggie so that it doesn't dry out and you don't waste and have to rewash it and everything. So then I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to make some lines on my foam kneeler, and I made them 3/4 of an inch thick, and then I'm going to take these outside and cut them with my miter saw. And so I have an array of different pieces, and so now I'm going to take my utility knife and cut these right down the middle. And I do that a few times so that it's nice and open, because this is going to serve as a frame around our sign. So you want to make sure to push it on there tight and that it fits, and you just need to pull it out a little bit so that it's all snug as a bug in a rug. And then I'm going to mark where I need to cut it off, and then I'm going to make this frame go all the way around my sign. So once I have all my pieces in order, I'm going to take it apart and then use my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm going to give it a couple of coats. And then I'm going to go back after I'm done painting my thankful sign, and I'm going to put some Waverly wax in antique so that it will look like wood. And you guys, it totally turns out looking like wood, I think. So now I'm going to take my black chalk paint and give my thankful sign a cover, and I'm going to do that actually twice. And then to seal it, I'm going to use my matte finish Waverly varnish, which I forgot to show you guys. So now I'm going to take a black felt pen and I'm going to make lines going across my board, and I made them 1 1/4 inches thick. So here's where I'm using my Waverly wax, and I diluted it down with some water, and then I'm just using a makeup sponge to put that on there. And one thing about using my chop saw, it's got that big round blade, and so because I had to make 2 cuts for 1 long strip, there's some nice saw blade marks in there, which I think makes it look even more like legit wood. Then I'm going to take my hot glue gun, and you really don't even need the hot glue, but I just did it to make it super secure, and then I'm going to put this on all the way back around. So now I'm going to take my wooden leaves, and I just used a little bit of spackle to fill in the holes at the top because these are ornaments. And then I'm going to use my chalk paint in pumpkin and paint the first one just straight out of the jar onto the leaf. And then on my second one, I'm going to add a little bit of mineral to it just to lighten it up a tad. And then on the third one, I'm going to make it even lighter by adding more of the mineral. And the mineral is kind of a grayish white. It's really close to white, so you could totally use white too, but I just had this and poured some out. So I just painted them from the centers and moved it out towards the ends of the leaves. So to place my metal word onto my sign, I'm going to use some Mod Podge and put it all over the back of the metal. And hot glue is kind of hard to use with these words because they're so thin and you really have to work fast, and it doesn't really stick to metal that well. So I just went with this method and it worked out perfectly. So any of the ickies I went over on top of it, and it just gave it a nice little coat and made it all perfect and beautiful. So then I took my leaves and I hot glued those, and I kind of went crooked on one and then crooked on the other, going the other way and then back the other way. So it's just kind of cute and whimsical. And here it is all done, but then on the back side I still have my little scarecrow. So this can be reversible, and all I did was I took a burlap leaf and just hot glued that to the top of his hat, and then I'm going to take some raffia and just fold it over a few times to make a sweet little bow, and I'm going to cut that off and then hot glue that over to the side. And then I took a sunflower that I had popped off of one of those standing pumpkins, and so I'm recycling that and putting that right in the middle of his little straw bow. And here he is, all finished and dressed up, ready to go. And I love how it's up and down and it's cutie patootie. I left the frame white on this side, and even with just the white paint, I think it still looks like wood. And so I'm really loving all of these colors of fall, and what Dollar Tree has, I think their colors are right on point. And here it is with the little pumpkin. And then we'll turn it the other way, and you can set this on a countertop or hang it. And so I think this turned out so stinking cute, and I really think this looks like wood. So we always have a hard time finding things that can frame signs, but I think this looks rustic and weathered, and no one would ever know that it's just foam. So I love this, and I hope you guys like it too. For our final project, we're going to be using 2 metal paper towel holders, 2 metal trays, a pumpkin from this football hanging sign, the arrow from this bridal sign, and then the handle of a dustpan, 2 ping pong balls, some black wire, and then some Krylon matte black spray paint, some chalk paint in white and in ink. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the handle from the dustpan, and then I want to make my paper towel holders a little bit further apart than my trays on a horizontal orientation. And I also need to fit my arrow at the bottom. So I'm going to see how far apart that is, and then I'll mark my handle, and using a utility knife I'm going to cut that apart. So now I'm going to take the little legs off of the sign, and I just used my Cricut spatula to get it loosened up and then just pulled it off. And then I'm going to get all the ickies off and take off my stickers from the back of my tray. And then I'm going to use my white chalk paint and paint the back sides of my trays. And this is really fun because it feels like finger painting or something, because you can get all nice and messy. And I'm going to give this a couple of coats and let it dry in between. Now I'm going to paint my wooden arrow, and I painted both sides, and I'm using an Annie Sloan paintbrush that my friend gave me, and I absolutely love that. And so now I'm going to use my pumpkin and white to make my pumpkin all nice and pumpkin-y. And so I just put white on one side and orange on the other, and then once I get the sections of the pumpkin, I'm going to use that white to make highlights and make it look more dimensional. So speaking of finger painting, I just stuck my finger into my Waverly wax in antique and just made the stem of my pumpkin all nice and brown. And then I'm going to take a little piece of buffalo check ribbon and dovetail the ends, and then I'm going to attach that to the top part of my pumpkin just under the stem. And I used a chenille stem to wrap it around so that it would be nice and cinched in the middle, and then just twisted it in the back and then hot glued it right to the top. And then I'm going to take an extra bow that I had. I took this off of one of those wooden pumpkins that I used in my last video, and then I attached that right on top of the buffalo check. So now I'm going to take some popsicle sticks, and I made little lines at the end, and then again using my utility knife I'm going to break off the edges after I score it really well, and then assemble this into a Christmas tree. I didn't have any of my Christmas items out, so I had to come up with something because I want this to also be a 2-for sign. So I just made it into a Christmas tree, and then I'm going to take my moss chalk paint and add a little bit of white each time I go up the popsicle sticks. And then I'm going to turn those all over at the back, and then take one last popsicle stick that I'll use my Waverly wax on for the trunk of the tree, and I'll use hot glue to keep those all together. So now I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure my long arrow, and I'm going to go horizontally and vertically, and then all the parts of my sign on the left sides of my little tree and my pumpkin. And then I'm going to go to my silhouette suite and make squares that are those same sizes so that I can put my words into the silhouette suite and then have it be the right size so that it fits on my sign. So after I get my whole design done, and I'm going to cut everything out in one sheet, and then I'm going to take that vinyl and then I'll cut that all out and then apply transfer tape on top of it after I pull the excess vinyl off and weed all of the insides of the letters, and then I'm going to put those onto my signs. I started using a different kind of transfer tape because I've noticed that Dollar Tree hasn't been carrying the shelf paper anymore, or I haven't seen it anyway. So somebody had recommended, one of my viewers had said that Walmart carries some kind of Duck brand clear shelf paper, but not only is it super good, as I learned this time around, it's also cheaper and it's already cut in 12-inch pieces. So whereas the shelf liner at the Dollar Tree, it comes in a larger roll, so you always have to cut it down. So thank you for that piece of information. So in order to get my decal in the right place, I put my pumpkin and my Christmas tree down first, and then I placed my decal so that I would have it exactly centered on the sign. And then I'll pull up the transfer tape and then get them both done. So then I took a little piece of gingham scrap fabric and I put it in thirds and then used a chenille stem to make a little bow out of it. And then I'm going to attach that to the top of my tree for some additional cuteness. And I don't know if you guys can tell, probably not, but I have a different editing system, and so I am having a time with it, and it's testing my fruit of patience and peace and every fruit on my tree. So then I'm going to take some black chalk paint and get my arrow and my two signs all nicely distressed, and I just go around with a dry brush just to make it look a little aged. And then I'm going to make some holes in the top parts of my signs, and I'm going to use my big huge nail and hammer that in on top of a piece of scrap wood so I don't go through my work surface. And then I'm going to use my binder clips to attach those to my pole once I get those done. And on the back I hammered down the sharp parts of the metal that came through when I nailed it. So now I'm going to mark where I need to make my holes so that I can attach my rod to the top of my paper towel holder. And so I just used a regular nail and hammered that in, and I went all the way through so that when I go back in with my wire, it'll go through to the bottom, and then I can just wrap it around there. And so I first used a couple of rubber bands just to hold it in place while I was working, but I ended up just leaving those because they're black and you can't really see them, and it's just some additional support. So then once I got my wire through, I had to actually use a needle to get it through because this is a pretty high gauge wire and it's pretty flimsy. So I just fed it through and then twisted it at the bottom. And on the first side, I actually came up and wrapped it around some more on top of the paper roll holders, but you don't really need to do that, and it stays in place, and it looks better if you don't have it wrapped around the top. So then I took my wooden sign and I'm going to attach that at the bottom of my paper towel holders using some hot glue, and then I took some white ribbon just to go on top of it and to give it some more security and be nicely finished. So I just realized that I completely left out the steps where I took these paper towel holders and my 2 ping pong balls and I spray painted those black. But since you guys know the challenges I've been having with this editing software that I've just learned today, and I have to say thank you to my youngest daughter's friend Chloe, who has helped me all day trying to edit this video. So thank you, sweet Chloe. Anyway, I am not going back to put that in, but anyway, I just attached the 2 black balls to the sides of my rod, and that gave it a completed look, I think. Here it is all done, and I am in love with this sign. I actually contemplated cutting out this whole section just because I was having so much trouble with my voiceover, and as you can probably tell, I'm kind of losing my voice. So I think it was worth it though. I love how this turned out. I think it's so cute, and it's a twofer because it's a 2-for-1. You have your fall sign just in time for the fall season, and then if you flip it over and to the back, you can show your Christmas spirit with the Christmas sign. So I hope you guys enjoyed these projects. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think. Hopefully the volume's gonna be okay, and I'm not sure what music I'm using yet because I haven't found my Judson Crane song on this system, but just give me grace if you would. I hope everyone has a blessed day, and remember to always be the light. Bye.